Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what I want to do is just do a deep dive of specifically one array method, array sort, because it's sort of a tricky method to master and there's a lot kind of going on, and I thought we'd explore that. Okay, so let's create a new file. Let's call this sort.js, and let's just start off with sort of like the basic stuff. So if I do const my array equals, and we'll just say 1, and I'll just do this out of order, 7, 8, 9, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this number's 1 through 9, not in order. And if I were to console.log my array and use the sort method, it'll sort them. Okay, so let's just open up a terminal. Okay, and then I will run the file node sort.js and see it sorts them. That works pretty well. Okay, so basically if I have a array of numbers, it will sort them. Now if I have an array of strings, const my r2, so let's see here, let's say equals Gouda Colby Munster and must put provolone before Munster. Okay, now let's see what happens if I sort that array. That should be array 2.sort. Okay, and see, for like strings, it does a pretty decent job of sorting them alphabetically. So that's all fine and good. Now, what happens is that when you want to go beyond this, it gets a bit more complicated. So here's where things start to kind of, the fly in the ointment comes in with numbers. Is the minute you end up with 2 digits, so if I go to like 11, and then let's say I put in like 22 over here, and then I put in 33 over here. Let me just save that and clean that up. Okay, now if I do that, notice what happens. It goes 111, not 1, 2, 111. But 11 is certainly bigger than 2. The reason is it's kind of like just judging it. It basically is treating them all strings, kind of. So basically, they're still kind of alphabetically in order by sort of their string value, because it's really built to put these in order by strings. So the sort method takes a function. So actually the sort method does have an argument, which is a callback function. And essentially the format of the value, or the format of the function, the signature of the function is, basically xy, and then you return something, okay? Now, they basically a positive or negative number. That's essentially what you're trying to get to, positive or negative number. Okay, so let's think about that. Like, how would that work? Like, how does this function actually work? Depending on if I return a positive number, how's it going to respond versus if I return a negative number? The way it comes up with this, it says it takes the first number, it takes the first value. Well, if you took a pure function, like the pure sort function is this, just go x, y, okay, and you return x minus y. And this essentially fixes the number situation. But let's think what happens. If x minus y, so that's the first two numbers, so this is x and this is y. So x minus y ends up with a negative number, so because 6 is bigger than 1. So in that case, these do not need to swap spots because 1 is already smaller. Okay, so if it's a negative number, it will not swap spots. Okay, but let's see one where that would be the case. Okay, here 11 and 8. So if once we get down to 11 is x and y is 8, well, 11 minus 8 would be positive 3, so then it would swap the number. So essentially, if it returns a positive number, it swaps the numbers, or it swaps the items in the array. If it returns a negative number, it doesn't. So just this basic function here will sort the numbers in ascending order. So if I do this, okay, see now they're in order. Now if I wanted it, the cool thing is, now that just means that if I had them give the opposite results, they would do the opposite order. So if I want to sort them in descending order, I would just do y minus x instead. Okay, just flip it. And now I should get from the highest number to the lowest number, which you see there. Neat. Okay, cool. I wonder if that also works with strings. So let's try that out. Control C. I paste that in here for strings. I think I got too many parentheses. There we go. Let's run that. And yeah, looks like, well, did that work? Gouda. Technically, provolone should be last. So that doesn't quite work because it's trying to coerce a mathematical value, and basically mathematically that is their descending order. So we'd have to figure out a different way to kind of reverse it for strings. Okay, although you could just reverse the array after you sort it to get the reverse order. That's also technically not a bad solution either. But okay. But that's essentially the idea, is that you can determine how it sorts based on passing it a function. Now, where this gets really useful is when you have like arrays of objects. Okay, so let's make an array of objects. So const my array equals, and then we'll sit there and say we have dogs. So we have a name of a dog, so we'll say Spot, and then we have the age of the dog, which we'll say 6, and then we'll just make several of these dog objects. Okay, we'll just say 3, 8, 2, okay, Rover, dog named Cheese, why not? Clifford. So I'd like to sort this array. The question is what I want to sort it based on. Console.log. Okay, and then what I can do is say const, well, actually it would just be my array dot sort. Now if I just sort it as it is, let's see what I get. What I get back. Okay, it pretty much just gave me back the array because, you know, there's no real mathematical value of these objects, so it's not gonna be able to sort it. So I need to give it some instructions. So we know that x and y will be the first two items in the array. The question is how I want to address that. Let's say I want to sort them by age. I would just say, hey, x.age minus y.age. So that way it's comparing the age properties of the different objects. Okay, and see now they're sorted by age. And I can reverse that. Now let's see what happens if I want to do it by name. Okay. Let's do x.name equals, okay, x.name equals, oh no, we'll say minus xy.name. That shouldn't work, but let's just go with it. Okay. Spot. Yeah, it's not in order. Well, it's actually technically kind of QRS. Yeah, that's in reverse order technically. Cool. That kind of worked out. So you can do that, but you also can do something even more like complicated. You could do something like x. So let's see here, x modulo 2. So first, whether x is even, minus whether y is even. Modulo 2 equals 0. Because let's think about that. If this is even, that's going to end up being 0. And if this is even, it's going to be 0. That's not a negative number, so it won't swap. But let's say this is 0 and then this is 1. because it's not even, then technically that'll end up with a negative number. But if this is, let me think about that. What would that actually end up? Let's see what we end up with. Okay, no, didn't change the order because it's going to end up with a no change regardless. Well, actually, let me think about that. If this is a not even number, then this would be 1. And if this were, yeah, so that'd be a positive number, so it would swap. But I got no change. Let me think about that. It's even, odd, or no, well, technically it should just be like either the 3 should be at the bottom or the end. But it's not the result that we got. There's a couple different ways we could do this. You could just make this a Boolean. Because again, this is actually technically this will end up with true minus. Here's what I did. Here's where I went wrong. I used a Boolean expression. Should just do that. Because technically I'm doing like true minus true or true minus false, and that's not a mathematical thing. Okay. So now if I try that, still no change because x modulo 2. Oh, it's because I'm saying x. It should be x dot age. So I want to see if they have an even age or not. The object itself is not a mathematical thing. Okay, there we go. And there you go. So you see, like all the even numbers go first, and then the odd number. So you can like sort it by basic things. You just kind of think through sort of like how you do the comparison logically. So in this case, you could do it that way. I could say, hey, let's do it by whether they're divisible by 3, which if I look at it, only 2 numbers there are divisible by 3. So let's see. And see the 2 numbers that are divisible by 3 end up going first, while the 2 numbers not divisible by 3 end up going last because the sorting function. So the idea is that you have to kind of think through like the logic for it to return a negative number when you don't want to swap and a positive number when you do want to swap. And I've seen some situations where, you know, again, you're not sorting it in a necessarily straightforward way, but this function doesn't have to be simple. You can create a complicated function. This function can be as complicated as you want to get that final result. So you could, maybe there might be 20 different properties that you want to check, and then, but the point is you can create comparisons between objects and sort objects if you pass in sort of like the right function. And that's pretty cool. Okay, so this sort function can be pretty powerful if you need it to be. It does take a second to kind of think through, because again, you have to kind of think through like, okay, when would I return a negative number? Or, and again, sometimes you just have to arbitrarily send out a negative number. You might say, hey, if this is true, then, you know, return negative 1. If this is not true, then return positive 1. And then that's kind of how you do it. But yeah, that's essentially the sort function and how you can use it to do cool things. So my name is Alex Merced of alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.